Hi everyone, this video is about Risk of Rain 2 and how great of a game it is. Risk of Rain 2 on the surface may just seem like another roguelike that mimics games such as The Binding of Isaac or Hades, but it's in a lane of its own. It's great to have games like Risk of Rain 2 that spice things up, since recently games have begun to feel jaded or have been ruined by corporate decisions to maximize their profits. Companies like Activision, EA, Microsoft used to be the leading innovators for gaming. Nowadays though, it feels like the real excitement in creating innovative games has fallen on the shoulders of indie developers, where creativity is more flexible and more risks can be taken. They have been the industry's golden goose who have been dishing out hit after hit. Risk of Rain 2 radiates a serene chill and lax atmosphere at first sight, yet revs up to be quite the chaotic game. Just to juxtapose it to music, it plays like Kid Cudi's Man on the Moon 1 album when you first enter the game, but begins to evolve to the sound of Slipknot as the game progresses. On occasion, you can be Superman jumping from one area to the next, acrobating through space, demolishing enemies, yet when you take a breather or grab an item, you will be demolished into innumerable pieces the next second. That's why the game is closer to organized chaos that slowly swallows up your screen as time goes on in the game. The longer your run goes, the more difficult the game will become. Knowing that resolves an issue that many games find difficult to adjust: difficulty in video games. A favorite series of mine is the Dark Souls series. In the Souls series, you are never given a choice to pick what difficulty to play in, which makes playing this game so rewarding or a living hell to play. Most games quickly prompt us to this title screen have us choose the difficulty that we want to experience. By doing so, we are choosing the bar that will determine our experience when playing a video game. This is a mechanic that can serve a game well or ruin its flow. Two experiences can be created by doing this: either a game feels more artificial, or a gamer becomes more deeply involved playing the game. Whether they decide to shake up the gameplay by forcing the player to perfect their gameplay, or make a game worse by adding more health to enemies, these changes make the game more rewarding or annoying. Yet, when they choose to do the former and force a player to perfect their gameplay, they make the player more deeply involved with the mechanics of the game. Runs in Risk of Rain 2 may seem like a breeze, but they can easily turn south in the later parts of a run as enemies become deadly enough to one-shot a player. Now, this isn't a big problem, as I see it as a strength, as it prevents the gameplay from being a mindless activity. It keeps me on my feet knowing that a simple slip-up could be the end. An example that I'd like to share to convey this feeling is the feeling that you get when you play fighting games. In the FGC community, you don't get to choose the level your opponent will be. If I'm facing a friend or a professional player, their skill is not decided by me. No one gets to choose the difficulty that their opponent will be unless they're fighting in a PC. In Super Smash Bros. Melee, HBox is one of the best players. If I were to go up against him, there is no doubt that I would get completely obliterated, but that's what makes it fun. Then, if he was my only opponent, that would force me to become a better player and learn a game that is totally alien to me. In a way though, Risk of Rain 2 makes you try and figure out the right combination of items to complete a run. It is not a static game that you stomp over, but you must be wary of the items that you have to ensure that your build is tough enough to endure the hordes of enemies. Not having the option to choose a difficulty in video games makes it more rewarding as well. When you beat a boss like Millennia in Elden Ring, those moments are precious to a player, as the obstacle is often not beaten in one try. Through relentless tries and painstaking close victories, the experience becomes something that is unique to each player. That is because you had to some level, improve your gameplay to overcome the obstacle. Whether that was through sheer brute force and using the Lion Claw to ignore her attacks, or memorizing her moves to avoid getting hit, the game forces you to become better. This feeling is similar in Risk of Rain 2, but covers the entirety of a run instead, as you have to be aware of how your items are affecting your power. In a run, I was advised by a teammate to pick up the Shaped Glass item. This item is completely bonkers, as it doubled my damage but half my health. I was the ultimate glass cannon that could delete enemies at the slightest touch. But the same was true for myself. I accidentally stepped on a mushroom after beating the boss of a level, and that ended it all. Now, let's talk about the difficulty in Risk of Rain 2. Risk of Rain 2 has 3 difficulty modes that you can choose, each serving a different purpose. Not quite ready to play the more difficult settings? Pick Easy Mode, which is conveniently colored green. I consider this to be the Rookie Crusher level, as there isn't much challenge at all. This mode is great, but lacks the chaos that the other game modes provide. Getting items is easy, and they'll make you overpowered, but the setting severely lowers the number of enemies that will appear on the screen, making it a breeze to crush enemies. Getting items is easy and they'll make you overpowered, but the setting severely lowers the number of enemies that will appear on the screen, making it a breeze to crush enemies. The difficulty will spike up a bit, yet it never seems enough to catch up to the player's pace of strength. This mode is great, but we're aiming for badass, baby. Media mode is what the developers of the game wanted players to experience. This mode begins like you're sipping on a nice whiskey, but gradually as you get more drunk, you start to pound out the Coronas like Mexican at a quinceañera. Enemies are easy, but every minute that passes, the enemies will get stronger. In multiplayer, items are shared between teammates, and these should be shared equally to make it further in the run. If for some reason you decide that all items on the map are yours, then you are truly in for a serious ass whooping. Path of selfish desire to become the hero of the run is great, but you'll quickly find yourself as the sole target of enemy aggression, and let me tell you buddy, that is not what you want. It's important to remain aware that all players need to have items in order to survive the endless hordes, and bosses should be tackled jointly because they can dish out devastating damage. Juggling all this may seem easy, but it takes just one instance of overconfidence to get yourself killed, or an untimely bathroom break that gets you killed.
Where does he get off calling a demolition a priority one?
Bosses at this level are no joke either. At the beginning they are, but that as well gets cranked to 11 the longer the game lasts. You go from bees to wasps, attacking you viciously real fast. However, knowing and doing well in this mode feels satisfying because it was the way the game was meant to be played. Having this feature in the game makes it fun because it pushes players to be on their heels the whole game, making them become aware of their surroundings. Hard mode, I can't say much about that. That is the dark continent to me, as I have yet to get a team strong enough to venture into that mode. Other modes in the game can be selected and make the game easier or harder depending on the run you want. Think of this like the skulls in Halo that drastically changed the playthrough. Now, for the fun stuff. Items in the game are what makes this game a blast to play. These items make a big difference in each playthrough. A complaint that I have with The Binding of Isaac is that some items don't feel like they do anything at all. They feel like filler. There are a few items that make drastic changes to your character, like the Binky, that change the way that Isaac looks, but for the most part, these items fade into the background or revolve around your character as if you were some kind of planet. That's why when I play The Binding of Isaac, I'm usually excited about one or two items that feel like they are going to make a difference to my run. In Risk of Rain 2, each item feels like it has an effect on my character. This may be more apparent because it is in 3D versus the 2D world of Isaac, but it feels like even the most trivial items are making some impact on the gameplay. Speed and jumping are the most apparent changes that happen to your character that make the game entertaining to play. Being able to jump and leap distances as far as the Hulk is cool to watch. Also is the feather item that adds an extra jump to your character. When you get about 3 or 4 of these in-game, everything just seems closer to you. On top of that, there is an item that looks like a bird that makes your jumping faster. It's cool to see items synergize together and make your character into a mobility beast. Stacking items is another cool thing to do, as these items add up fast to make a change on damage, healing, or defense. An item that I love and pick up every time I see is the ukulele. It's got a sweet description that says, "and his music was electric," which just makes it more badass. It creates chain lightning that bounces off enemies that make you feel like static shock. Though this minute detail is small, for me it is an important detail because it shows visually on the screen that my character's status have increased. What's cool as well about the items in Risk of Rain 2 is that they get attached to your character. At times it looks like pieces of bubblegum are holding them together spread out haphazardly around your character, but the style and flair that they add to the gameplay are worth it. During a run, there's an item in the game that can change all the items that you have and transform it into 2 items. I tried it once and it made my run feel like I had entered the running fast cheat in Grand Theft Auto game. Prior to using this item, I had 1 hoof foot, but when I used this device, it transformed all of my items into the hoof's foot. I had 23 hoof's foot that made my character run like he had snorted a line of coke laced with meth and speed, followed up by a Bang energy drink to top it off. My character ran as fast as Sonic the Hedgehog. It was amazing to see how the game reacted to 23 hooves, but honestly, ended the run, as I had lost all my damage items. In the end, it felt like I was a mosquito that got swatted down after the game got tired of me. Like it had said, "Yeah, that's cute, but this is the end, kid." However, I always keep this device in mind in case I want to spice up my runs. Nonetheless, this shows how crazy a run can go. Run faster, jump higher, and be stronger than ever before.
We can rebuild it. We have the technology. But I don't want to spend a lot of money.
Getting your character to that point is the goal of the game, and each run can vary depending on the items that you get from purchasing boxes, or you can tinker with the settings and make it so that you can choose a specific item when you buy boxes. This leads to another cool thing about the game. When I die in the game, which is often, it's interesting to see the builds that other players have going on. With only 33 hours in the game, I continue to pick up on new things that other players are doing by looking at their items and asking why they chose certain items, or I just look up what items work well with each other on the interwebs to make better builds. The variety and surprises that you can find in the game are endless, and it's what has me coming back to the game time and time again. It feels good knowing that this game exists when I'm playing a game that feels vanilla. Characters in this game are an absolute blast to play, as each character in this game feels vastly different from one another. The Huntress and Samurai are my go-to characters when playing the game, and they play the way I like to play games. With the Huntress, I'm strafing through the air, trying to be nimble and quick, avoiding damage and shooting the bow better than Katniss. With the Samurai, I'm trying to be the number one samurai, assaulting enemies right in their faces and being crazy aggressive. Each of these characters' play styles change the pace and overall gameplay of the game. These multiple styles of playing the game allow me to flee combat when things get too hectic or play the game like an anime character. I have minimal game time with all the other characters, yet when I watch others play them, they look like they are having a lot of fun. There is a wizard that is nuts to watch as he hurls magic at enemies and can jump to insane heights to avoid damage and bombard enemies from above. In the DLC, Survivors of the Void, the developers introduced 2 new characters that play in interesting ways. The Railgun character is the one that I consider the most interesting, as his main weapon absolutely annihilates enemies. However, when watching people play this character, I noticed that the character's shortfall is his lack of mobility, which makes him an easy target for enemies. The other character I have not seen, so he remains a mystery to me. The atmosphere and location in video games can make the experience of a game a bust if not done well. Darktide is another game that I've been playing, and that game is fun to play just because I get to see the world of Warhammer brought into reality. The background of Risk of Rain 2 is a canvas that provides the player with open space to encourage movement. Jumping from one area to another with abilities makes this open space feel small at times. This is extremely true once you've acquired a few mobility items that reduce recharge times and increase mobility. In the beginning, most of the areas that you do encounter are usually more on the serene side of things. It feels peaceful as the colors that are used for those early areas are warm and bright. This can quickly turn as the more difficult levels begin to look and feel like hell. A location that I enjoy playing is in the snow area that has wild buffaloes charging at players. These enemy types are like Guy Sensei, hitting you with a dynamic entry when they attack you. It's hilarious. The buffalo can end a run abruptly if you're not being mindful of them, as they can hit you completely left field. This X-Factor element that the buffalo bring to the table is what makes them my favorite enemy to fight against. The more hellish levels remind you of Doom Eternal, as there are plenty of enemies that make the zone a nightmare. Other than that, what can be said about the environment of Risk of Rain 2, other than it's a beauty to be in it? The art style, or whatever you want to call it, that the developers use to make the game makes it feel more unique. Risk of Rain 2 does something that no other game has done for me, and that is bring roguelike elements to a 3D game. I've played Dead Cells and The Binding of Isaac, and those games are a blast, but they always feel like they come up short in terms of building up your character. Stat boost in them is confined to the 2D style and the space that they play in. In The Binding of Isaac, yeah, I can go fast, but my movement is limited to its small rooms. Risk of Rain 2 is a beauty where you can traverse through the game in style while struggling to stay out of sight of enemies. For that reason, I believe that it should be praised for the uniqueness it brings to the gaming scene. I wait patiently for another Risk of Rain game, or game that can imitate the gameplay and put a spin on it. The sky is the limit in this game, and you need just enough feathers to reach it. Thanks for watching and have a great day, everyone.